Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Saddleback Pod. I am here with no mustache Brian Town from Michigan Creative, which
I could have.
You did say that, and I did this thing this morning where I'm going to shave this damn thing off because I thought you were going to roll in with one, and then you were going to look like the ass, and I wasn't. But then I kind of started doing some game theory of who would win in this situation.
I mean, I would. Yeah, mine looks pretty good. It's definitely thick. My daughter doesn't like it.
Of course not, but you've got a lot of structure there. You've got some good tools. I'm pretty jealous. I'm actually upset about the whole thing.
But I'm not on a billboard.
Fair. God, damn billboard. Always comes back to the billboard.
I know. It's sweet.
It's like
I shake my head every time I see it. But
I get creeped out.
Yeah,
oh my God.
My wife would be pissed if I was on a billboard. Get that old man off there.
It's like the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, tell kind of our audience a little bit about yourself. We've known each other for a while. We've got some great history in weird ways. But yeah, let them kind of know what your gig is.
Yeah, man. I mean, like you said, you and I've been going at this for a while. I remember, I love to tell your success story because I remember that time when you were just I remember Chef was Cronin.
Yep.
He was just telling me, because I was coaching youth football with him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Back in the day when our kids were young, and him and I coached together forever. And he was like, and I didn't really know you then, and he was like, oh, yeah, Matt's got this, out back.
Yeah.
He does this barbecue thing. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I was just like, I like barbecue too. I mean, I didn't pull a grill behind my car or anything, but then I think you were at a pitch competition and
lost your family on that one.
Did you lose to us?
Yeah, the potato chip.
Oh no, yeah. So he won. Yeah, so my son won, but he was like sort of that second prize or whatever they didn't really have. But so that was we did smoke you on that one. I did
deservingly so.
I did pitch a bunch too at those, and I never won.
They're kind of fun.
They are
like
fun.
Once you get over that hump of I got to get up here and kind of.
But that was fun. But yeah, I love telling that because look where we are now, and I think it's just funny that. I think as entrepreneurs, I should probably tell you about myself, but, I think we just assume that everybody's like us. We just assume that everybody can do what we can do so that we don't really think about kind of that first time when we were just starting and where we got today. Like
totally.
And I always say too, because it's stressful, it's hard being a business owner. And I think, if we both shut down tomorrow, you and I would see it as failure, probably. Maybe not. Maybe we're bigger than that now, or a big relief.
Yeah,
But
lose probably 10 pounds.
I know. Yeah, my stress levels would be so much better. But running it for as long as we have, I don't think I mean, if it shut down tomorrow for whatever reason, I think it's been a success, and it's hard for us to see that. I think it's
the weird of what is the norm? If nothing's going on, does that mean this is a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know.
It's just the stresses that go through it. Is this how it is? Is this always how it is?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's super strange. Am I doing everything right or everything wrong?
It's always a mix of both.
Idea.
And my wife really. And I was just talking to somebody else about this too, that she's a PA still. She was in ortho surgery for a long time. She was in the ER, and then she just decided 2 years ago to quit her job and start a med spa, and she's been wildly successful. She's just done a great job, and she's much smarter, as I'm sure your wife is, than us. I mean,
I'm a moron.
Yeah,
dude,
but if they're that smart, and we know they are, what the hell are they doing?
It's very true.
I bet they question.
Very true.
They question that all the time.
They wake up every morning looking at me like,
it's not what I was thinking.
This might be the last day of this one. No,
but she said it best. Is she's like, I just thought I'd open this business and it would be great and everything would be wonderful. And it is. But, from day one, there's always decisions you have to make.
It's insane.
All the time. The number of decisions that we have to make in the course of the day, like you said, we don't know if they're right or wrong or if it's what the status quo is. We make them.
Yeah, you brought up coaching football, and I never played football. I watched a lot of football, but I always use that analogy of business owner's like a quarterback. You got to be able to stand in that pocket. You have to have the tools to throw the long bomb, but you also got to be able to sit there and take that sack. You're relying on your guys around you to make plays, keep some of the things off you. Things slip through the cracks, man, and you're going to get jacked up one of these times. But the good ones can consistently stay there. They can possibly throw a bomb. They can possibly make a great run. But it's tough, dude. You got to have that right mindset for it.
Yeah, it's all mindset too. I mean, any given day. Like I remember, talking. So anyway, if you guys don't know, I run a company. Should probably get there. We can talk all day, but I run a company called Michigan Creative. Been doing that for almost 13 years now. Started that after a long career in education. So we're basically a full service agency. We do PR, marketing, branding, a ton of video because that was my background. That's what I used to teach at a high school. It's really just. This is always funny to think about too. Is like, as much as people move jobs today, like this is really only my second job. Like I was a teacher from basically sort of. I mean, I worked.
Don't forget about that Crunchies job.
I worked at Crunchies.
I was job.
One of the best cooks there, just saying. And every time I go in there, I'm like that old dad, like, Missy, I used to work here. And she's like,
I remember that bucket. It was
we peed in that bucket. No, I'm just kidding. So it's like, oh, there's another old guy out there. But yeah, so really my first career was in education. I had a job for about a year working at Bloomfield Hills Schools as their video coordinator. And then after that, I got the job at Hazlitt High School to start and run that program. Basically stayed in that for 14 years, I think, 15 years, I don't remember, and then opened up this.
Okay.
So really, this is my second job. If you look at it now.
Yeah.
So it's been just two careers and similar. But back to the story of my wife, she just thought that it was just going to run smooth and everything was going to go great. And it has. It's beautiful. And she's become one of the top med spas in the area in short period of time. But she's like, but then there's all this hard stuff that happens all the time. And she used to think of them as problems, but they're just things. And sometimes you'll make the right decision and sometimes you'll remember not to do that again or change it, like whatever the next time. And sometimes you won't.
Yeah.
And if you can just consider that there's always going to be times when you're going to have to make decisions, because if it gets to the point where you're not having to solve big problems or make big changes, then you're probably not moving.
Yeah. And I think it's just that kind of, to get up 2 steps, you got to take a step down. And like, it's one of those wrong decisions. Okay. Acknowledge it and move on.
Yeah.
Like, it's all right, man. Like that, but now not to do it that way or to try option B next time and see how that goes. And it still might be wrong.
And one of the things I say, I'm really good at giving advice. I've always been like that. Like I'm like, our core values are awesome at Michigan Creative. I've just got off a great employee review for a young girl, Macy, who was an intern. And now she's our graphic designer, basically a graphic designer. And she's just amazing. And she's the difference in her over the last year has been because of all that she's learned, but just the positive attitude and the belief in all of us. But I believe that she could do anything. And that for her has made her whole career probably. And I think that's the kind of thing that you and I don't think about.
Yeah. The value and experience and learning from others that I think goes unwavering, that, even if it's athletics or like they've just seen those games, they've played in those games, they've been in those situations, we do take it for granted.
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, we've been through worse than this. It's all right. Like, you'll be okay. And just that kind of learning from others is extremely valuable. And, I applaud her for taking that internship of like saying, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to learn from some of these people.
Outside of her comfort zone a little bit, coming in.
It's a big deal. It's a big step. And it's cool to watch those kinds of growths in people, watching them develop and what they came in as and what they're going to leave as and hopefully what they amount to be.
Yeah, and I think, I give great advice to like some of my coaching clients. I'm coaching this young girl who started a business. She's never run a business before, and she's almost done. It's a golf simulator out west of Charlotte in Potterville.
Okay.
Of all places.
Interesting.
But it's beautiful. And, she was really stressed out recently, and she's like, I don't know if it's going to open. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know. I'm like, hang on a minute. Like, take your computer around and show me what's up and just show me the facility. And I'm like, Crimson, this place is amazing. Like, look at you've done this year. Like, so I don't think you and I, I'm great at telling her to do that, but like, I think all of us need to take a minute in any of your businesses or any of your careers or anything that you're doing and just sit there for a moment and go, look what I built.
Yeah.
Like this place. Like, I bet it gets stressful sometimes. You're wondering if you made the right decision, if this is going to work. And you're still here and you look at this place, you're like, shit, man, I built this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely reality of it, because you get in the swamps and the trenches and the walls are caving in. But yeah, take a second to look at it and go, there's a lot worse out there.
Yeah.
Like there's people that did not make it this far.
Well, and we all of us here, because we only hang out with people like us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we hang out with entrepreneurs. We follow successful entrepreneurs. We see all the successful businesses around. And in reality, very few people do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make us special flowers or anything like that. But I mean, I'm a special flower. Matt, you are too.
Thanks, man.
That's how I describe you.
Nah,
well, how's Matt? He's cool. He's a special flower.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
that
true.
very few people not only decide to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even typically friends of mine. They're like, yeah, I could, never. But, they don't even aren't successful in doing it. So like the fact that we're still able to sit here and do it, I think we don't think of it like that.
Yeah.
But it's a big deal.
The only time I try to make more time to actually just reflect on where I've come from and where we're at. But the small glimmers into mine is when somebody's like, if I owned a restaurant, this is what I would do. And I'm always like, here's the keys, man. If you want to give this thing a shot here,
Awesome.
this is great.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
I like where you're headed here.
Yep.
But it's entrepreneurship. It's not for everybody.
Yep.
But I mean, as an entrepreneur, I'm welcoming anybody into that family. Like it's a fun journey. You learn so much about yourself and what you can actually accomplish and go through mentally, physically, emotionally. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think, from being a teacher to where I am in today, like the countless number of people that I've got to sit across, I mean, you included, like I would have never met any of you guys. And, I got to sit across from Al Glick, who is the CEO of Alro Steel.
Okay.
And he, there's the Glick MSU football building.
Yep.
It's his, or U of M football building. And, he was like, I think when I interviewed him, he was close to 100. And I got to sit across from him and ask him questions about how he started. And
Super cool.
I would have never been able to do that because we're doing a video for the Michigan Manufacturers Association. And I got to meet like CEOs of large manufacturing companies.
That's awesome.
So that alone, I think, has been worth it. And, we've been able to make brands that I think we're always looking, because we go day in and day out and, I'm making websites and videos and graphics and talking to clients, employees, you're serving food and I mean, you're doing the same thing, but your business is trying to get food out the door and then you get back up the next day and do it again. But I think, it's those other pieces that I think we sometimes forget of the differences we might make. And I think that's one of the things that I've always admired about you guys is just, I think it's partly due, why you're so successful is because there's this whole other piece of Saddleback, right? There's this idea that it's your responsibility to give back. And I think, those are the kind of things that as entrepreneurs, we're able to make impacts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a full circle type experience of where nothing that I've personally done, I can't attribute to something that's happened way before, like a college experience or like just like little learning experiences that I've gone. I can always relate back and go, that was a really crap time in my life, but I learned from that and it affected me today to some degree. And I don't know. It's a wild journey. It's a real wild journey.
And I wonder sometimes, I'm like, why am I, doing this in this form, and I wonder, man, what would it be like, to go work for someone, it'd be interesting.
Yep.
I mean, I think
you'd want to start calling the shots pretty quick, and you'd be like, shit, here we are. We're back to square one here. Like, I was supposed to not do this. Like, I didn't want responsibility.
Yeah. So I don't know. But like, I don't think I'd ever had, I've been given so many opportunities to meet such great people, even back when we started, just down the street here at the Tick.
Oh, that's right.
We were one of the first tenants in the Tick.
Yes, I remember that.
When the incubator was just kind of a new thing,
Yep.
And so that's where I resigned on a Friday and in the summer, I think it was in August, and then got an office. My first call was to Jeff Smith.
Yep.
And kind of knew Jeff then, because I had some friends that had a business in there that I was kind of a part of. So my first call was to Jeff Smith. I said I needed office. He's like,
got the little cube and
got
sliding
the cube
door there and ready to roll.
Yep, with the open ceilings, and it was beautiful. Like, it made us look like we knew what we were doing. And so for me, I had never run a business. I didn't know what entrepreneur. I didn't even know. Now everybody's talking about entrepreneurship in schools and things like that. Like, I didn't even know what that was.
It does seem like it's become very trendy recently. Like, everybody's an entrepreneur and all. And I wish there was something in the definitive way of looking at an entrepreneur to separate it from, like, I don't know, other things. But I guess all in all is just probably the ability to take that risk of like that jump, and that probably is the cleanest way of defining it, rather than, I don't know, I sell baseball cards on the side. Well, are you a true entrepreneur, or it's just a side project?
But yeah, I would have never met Jeff, and and then all the people that we got connected to there. I mean, honestly,
it's a big network.
It's a huge network, and that was before the Hatch was there.
Yep.
And so I think that immediately got me plugged into the ecosystem here. Because Jeff knew everyone, and
how much did you take away from that experience? Because it seems like, from a growth status, that would be in your best interest. Like, if you were starting out to be around like-minded people that either have some interest in your business or you personally, and you can kind of just feed off of them and, I don't know, hopefully generate some business through it. But it seems like that would be a great spot for a new starting entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think I always look at that as one of the pieces of our success, and I think there's multiple reasons. One, it was affordable. Two, it looked just cool.
Yeah.
And, when we brought clients up there, I have an office in downtown East Lansing. Come on over. And it's got this conference room. And some of the clients didn't know that we didn't own the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Sure,
totally.
And I didn't tell them.
They didn't know that, all these were, your employees.
Yes, they're all my employees, and I own this whole building.
Yes. Just ask for Brian at the front desk.
That's right. And it did have that feeling where we had a receptionist, and it looked great. And then, from there, we needed another office. So we just got one in the same spot. And then we needed another. So then we had 3 there. So I think that was one. I think 2, being around other people that were kind of doing the same thing. Getting to know, people like Jeff who, and I always, and a lot of people talk about Jeff, but and this holds true still today, is, just the kind of guy that believes in you, or believes in small business, believes that it's good for the community. And good for the state. And that was my belief too. I didn't really know it then, but I always felt when we started Michigan Creative, our first logo and branding was done by myself. I should have brought it. Pretty good. I'm just saying. It was pretty sweet. I got them on my mantle at work, and all the different logos and business cards.
Sure.
And the first one, it was like I think I stole it. It was like an app icon, and it was like 3D. And it had a picture of Michigan, the state of Michigan, in it. And I remember showing my wife, and she's like, "Oh my God, we're going to be millionaires." If you could see it, it's so bad. But shit,
you need to retro those and make shirts. And stuff. Do you got that throwback Michigan Creative on?
Yep.
Oh shit.
And the second one wasn't much better. And it was because the person that did it was great, but it was coming from me. And it had a leaf on it. But the idea was, I think, is that.
Oh, I remember that one. The dotting the I or something like that. Yep. Okay.
And that I felt that's how we branded Michigan Creative at first, is that we're going to help your business grow, and that helps the state grow. And that kind of came from being with Jeff in that environment. Is he felt that we were important to the growth of East Lansing and the growth of Greater Lansing, and I still think that holds true.
That's great.
And it's kind of like the story that I tell of Rio Town.
Yep.
And you guys were there before we were. But when you got there, it was just you and the pub and a couple other people.
Yeah, but you know why? I mean, I've told that story to you before, right? The reason that we ended up in Rio Town was because I was working at Dusty's bartending. You were popping through, you had a drink, and you said something to me like, I'm looking at relocating to Rio Town.
That's right.
And I had no idea what Rio Town was. So my happy ass drove down there. I think it was literally that day. And I mean, there wasn't, I don't remember Google or how I got there, and it was just deserted.
Yeah.
And the next time, I mean, months later, I followed through on it, went through, and that's when I saw the cafe was for sale.
That's right.
So, but if you wouldn't have opened your mouth and said, hey, we're looking to relocate to Rio Town, I would have never would have happened.
So I'm kind of should be like an equity partner.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You bought in at that moment.
I did.
It was wild.
Yeah. But because I was looking at Rio Town even way before that, and this was before anybody was down there, and there was that old building that was being redone. I can't think of who's there now. It's that big nonprofit that's there.
Across the street.
They do great affordable housing building. They're just
yeah.
amazing. I'll think of his name in a minute. He's awesome. But yeah, when then you guys went down there and we were still kind of looking, and I talked to Ruben, and then they had that spot, and Blue Owl was going to come down below us. And so Blue Owl and I moved in at the same time.
Yep.
And what I love about that story, and you know, I have very little to do with it, but you know, if you look at where Rio Town is now today,
Yeah, totally.
where people think it's a hip little place, and the story of that is where the creative folks go, not just us, but you as a creative business owner, an entrepreneur, where the entrepreneurs start to go to do things, is where you need to start looking.
Yeah.
And because those areas are going to then start to grow up. And that happened in Old Town 20 years ago.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really think about it like that, as far as like just really defining an area rather than maybe just a working environment. But you are right. Like,
Yeah, we didn't look for, back then I wasn't thinking that at all.
Sure,
I
but
was
like,
just thinking like, this is cool. And it, honestly, we're in Old Town now, which back then I was like, and even today I'm like, well, we're not fancy enough for Old Town. You know,
we don't have that.
Yeah, look at this. But so I thought Rio Town, that fits us. It's
Yeah.
gritty and it's dirty. It was dirty and it was just different and new. And I'm like, I love the car industry, and I love the idea of the people that used to live in those buildings.
Yeah.
And that was perfect for us.
It has such a great story, and I'm so glad you said that, because you are right. If you are, an artsier person or something with a more creative mind, and you go to Blue Owl in Rio Town, you will see somebody or meet somebody that's probably shares the same ideas, or at least in the same field.
For sure.
And if you wanted to have a beer and you went down to the Rio Town pub, that's probably what you're going to run across. Where, I mean, I love East Lansing and all, but if you come into East Lansing and you're doing the same thing, you're going to get a different crowd. It's not nothing against it. It's just going to be probably a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So one of the big things that I wanted to kind of touch on, obviously, I want to talk about the Toscana opening because I thought it was really cool. But one of the things that Bailey, who's back there, we talk about a lot is like, how does a restaurant, what's a good approach for restaurant marketing? Like, everybody said, you watch any sort of content, you have to have a presence, you have to have a brand, you have to put yourself out there. All the other shit that you just brought up of like curveballs and all these other things happening. So you watch these influencers, and of course they're doing a phenomenal job, but that's their job is to be an influencer.
Yeah, so you're trying to do that.
Yeah. But like, the real world is like, dude, no, I got a ton of stuff going on. Like, I can't just, unless I hire somebody to follow the camera, edit, get it out to 9 platforms, comment on everything, and then, I mean, that's expensive. Like, that's going to be not a cheap journey. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you had $10,000 a month,
yeah,
to spend just on that, no problem.
So it's like there's this weird, how do you do that? Like, what, or do you not do it? But I'm always interested to hear what like an actual marketing person suggests in that role, because I do think there are a lot of startups, maybe not even in the restaurant business, that value marketing, think their brand needs to be seen and understood by more, but they don't have the means.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're in this industry. I can only imagine the trends, the way to, video, the way to shoot stills, all changes on a daily basis of what works and what doesn't. How the hell do you keep up with that if you've got, no money? If you're Brian Town at the Tick, just sitting there going, all right, I'm here now, what do I do? And then going, the only way to grow your business is to grow your audience online and get more. Like, what? I was just, it's
I remember back
dark
then.
question. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I remember back then too, because we were just, I think we were focused on Facebook. This was 13, 14 years ago now, and Facebook was the place, right?
Yep.
And we were doing stupid things like for every 10 likes or whatever, and we got to like
totally
400.
Them. Yeah.
We were like, woo, stuff that doesn't work at all now. I and that's a great question, and I think that's the problem with a lot of the way that people think, is they just think they've got to be on everything and they've got to do everything the way that latest trends are. And yeah, if you have a budget, great. But I always, for any business, I always like it to back up to one thing, and that marketing hasn't changed since the beginning of time, right? Is that statement, and what I love to call that finally statement is, what is that type of content, or what is that perfect ad? And just, you can make it real simple, is just think about what that finally statement is. So someone sees that perfect picture with the perfect ad for whatever business it is, service, food, product, whatever. And somebody's sitting there on Instagram and you got 3 seconds, right? Or whatever it is now. And they see that ad and they're like, oh, finally.
Yep.
I've been looking for a place just like this. I've been looking for a product just like this. And you and I do it all the time. I'm on Instagram. I buy stupid stuff on Instagram.
Yeah, you should see my cards.
Instagram gets me. That's where I buy stuff, because I'm an old man. I buy stuff on Instagram. And but like, I bought this mask that you can that you can wear and swim underwater with. It's like this big it's called lung tank.
Thought that could go.
Oh
anywhere.
no, yeah. It's got a zipper on the mouth. Yeah.
It comes in all these colors.
I've got a whole bunch of those. Yeah. It's actually a monthly subscription. Funny if you're watching this. Yeah. Sorry.
You have a referral?
I got a code.
What's the code?
Yeah. It's Bryantown. No. But it's like a stupid air mask, and it has a little tank on it. You could stay underwater for like 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm like, I need that, because we swim in Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, and I'm like, I gotta have this. So I bought it, but it takes like 5,000 pumps on the hand pump to get 10 minutes of air. But anyway, my point is that finally I was like, oh my God, I've been looking for something like this, because I didn't want to scuba dive. I didn't want to whatever. I just thought it'd be something that we could swim. And so they got me pretty much down to a science right now of what I'm going to buy. Right. And what would,
scary.
Yeah. Almost to a science. So going back to that though, is if you can really figure out what that one singular message is of why people should come to you and why people should eat there, and then make a plan to create content based around that, and then to pick a platform.
Okay.
I mean, you can't, especially if you're doing it yourself. Like, people are going to say this. They're like, well, you got to be on everything because all your audience is all over the place. But I would find where you think your majority of your customer base is, and you can find that out pretty easily. Make an avatar or two of who your perfect customer is, and find out where they are and find out what that message is, and focus just on that to start, and grow that and do a really, really good job at that. And then you're going to have sort of a system in place. You're going to have the messaging in place. Then you can maybe move on to another one. I mean, it can be done, and you can do it yourself. And all of us entrepreneurs, we are all ADHD, some form or another.
Yeah.
We all have too much going on.
Yep.
And so if you make a plan to do it, and you actually put time in your calendar and block it off, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and that specific job is you're now the social media person, you can do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to sit there and you're going to go, oh, I got to go out and get this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. When am I going to get to this? And then you never do it.
Yep.
And so I love that finally thing. And a lot of times we'll have customers, big ones. We've got some manufacturers that are $50 million manufacturing companies that we're doing stuff for, and they don't know what their message is.
Yeah.
And so typically they'll come to us, or clients will say, like, look, our message is all over the place. It's different on the web, and it's different on Instagram, and it's different, wherever. And so that singular focus and that singular message really starts that sort of process of you being able to market better for yourself.
When somebody's not clear on exactly what they're, I think that all business owners know who they want in the door and all, but like when you bring up the messaging, is that what would be considered a rebrand, or is it just more of like a clarification point? Or
yeah, I don't think you have to rebrand's a big deal. I don't think you have to rebrand. I think there's a difference between the brand and the messaging. You can change your messaging over time, I think, and to tailor to a specific market and even a different season, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to really do that rebrand, but I think it would be a worthwhile exercise for you to sit down with a couple staff members, somebody else on leadership, and just some regular, employees, because they're the ones that are dealing with the customers.
Sure. Yep.
And then, ask everyone, what do you think is that message? And what do we do that people, what problem do we solve for people?
Yep.
And what is it? It's great tasting food in a that's local, that's quick, and in a friendly environment. Now, what is it that we solve for people, and why are they coming to us?
Yeah, the restaurant world's a weird one because it seems like it's, at least, and don't get me wrong, I'm entrenched in it, so I see all the comments and stuff but it does seem like it's one of the most polarizing things in an area.
You guys are really good at that.
Yeah, but on top of it, it's like the places that get, with the exception of us, but like a lot of the places that get either good comments or bad comments, they don't even have a voice on social media. Their pictures are all out of whack and all this stuff, and it's like, you're getting all this attention, good, bad, or ugly. Like, you got to be able to somehow make something out of it. Like, it's weird that people, I don't know if they don't have that connection, or maybe they're not even on social, but they can be talked about so much.
And no one.
And they don't even know what's going on.
And I think, that customer, that's where you really start to get really good following. You really start to get really good. Because like with you guys, there were some times when that was, I don't know, you guys had some wackos commenting on stuff.
Oh, we've had some good ones.
I think it's hilarious the way you respond. I want to just respond. It's awesome. I love it. And I think you guys handle it very well. And I know for you, I'm sure, is that the 9,000 good comments you get versus sometimes the one or two bad ones.
Sure.
You're just focused on that.
Yeah.
But I know. And you could look at all reviews that we've got and all the successful work that we've done. And I get one client that says they are going to go in a different direction. I'm like, oh, I suck.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
But I think the other piece, to go back to marketing question, is I think for any business, you can afford to have somebody part-time help you with social media.
What does something like that look like?
My wife's business, the Med Spa, so we do all their brand and website and all that kind of thing, and she gets it for free. And I send her all these really not polite invoices with a bunch of stuff on there she's never going to do and never going to. I'm going to take her to court. I think
you should.
Well, I'm going to. And but she's got someone that helps her with social media, because like for us, it's hard to do sort of the smaller businesses because I don't have anybody that's necessarily dedicated that can go out. And if you're going to have a company that does social media for a customer, you got to have people that are going to be in the restaurant
totally
that are weekly.
Yes,
you can't do it. Don't hire someone to just do content that's.
They have to understand your business,
and they got to be there. And so we have Maddie that comes in. She comes in once or twice a week. She has a plan of the 6 things that she wants to get. She tells the girls, and they record videos, and she comes in and gets it for the week. She might come in twice a month, so she'll get enough content, and then she has enough social content for that. And for us, I don't know exactly what she charges, but I think it's between $750 and $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Or $1,500 at the max a month. If you can find those for people that's what they do. A single person or a couple person company that's just doing social media, and the ones that will come in, it's worth its weight in gold.
Okay. And I think the follow-up question to that, if I was somebody in that boat, would be, how do I measure my results? And it's a doomsday question, right? Because, I don't know. If I was in your shoes, I'd be like, probably not the greatest way. It's, you got to have some faith in the process and believe that this is going to work. But I don't know, from our standpoint, where we do throw out a bunch of content, we're not really sure what we get in return. We just feel like it's working. We chase that dollar, like we want to chase that dollar, make sure it went through our funnel properly and ends up in the right spot. But it's got to be tough too.
It is tough. Social media is a tough thing, especially if it's that walk-in kind of business. You can definitely check all the metrics that you want. Like you can see your reach and your following, all that. But then again, what does that equal?
Yep.
Right. So, in a different scenario where you're actually sending leads to someone's website, one of the things that you have to make sure, because some clients are really good at it and some are not. And so, if you're going to send a bunch of leads, if someone's going to, if you're working with someone and they're going to send a bunch of leads to you, make sure that it's going somewhere in some sort of system so that you can say, all right, cool. We got 23 leads this week. From those 23 leads, we wrote, 16 quotes, whatever it was. And from those 16 quotes, 8 closed.
Yep.
And then you can see what that dollar value is versus what you spent. And if it's higher, which it should be at that point, then you know that you're spending good or spend more.
Yeah.
Right. But to track what you're doing on social, you can do that too, right? You can create lead forms and all that stuff. But for, restaurants, how would you track that someone, because they saw a picture of the brisket, came in and ordered brisket?
Yeah. I mean, you want to give credit where credit's due, but like the reality of it is you go to Lansing Foodies page and see something. I don't know if you're going to track that back to necessarily the campaign that led to that. So it's just a weird one that like, I would assume most restaurant people ask that, like, well, we got a budget for this, but want to make sure that it works. And
that's why I like that approach of picking one, because we overcomplicate marketing, and we think that because now TikTok's new, or now we're worried about TikTok because we may not be around, who knows, then we're going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
And, if you pick one or two platforms and you do those really well, you're going to, and content, as much content as you can put out there. And then if you're speaking with your voice to the right audience, like that's what you need to do. And people, if you're a business out there and you're not on some form of social media, you need to be on there. Even a B2B business, you need to be on some sort of platform so people see that you're relevant.
Yeah, I think, you brought up Facebook when we were talking about when we just started or whatever, and we've always been a strong Facebook place, but we always say, we should also be on XYZ. But if you do own that space, there is a chance that sometime it becomes insignificant. But you do have it right now. Like, just kind of double down on it. I mean, it's probably like, the ADHD part of like going, I want to be on everything. But the reality of it is you got something good going here. Like, just stick with it. It'll grow, just keep pounding on it.
Yeah, I don't have the perfect answer for you. Like, even if you look at our social media, we're doing a great, Macy and Kyler are doing a great job with our Instagram right now. We do okay on Facebook, but we're focused on LinkedIn and actually Twitter, X. Something that we've really been focused on for personal brand stuff.
Sure. So you got to walk me through this Toscana opening. For those who are not familiar, Toscana is I'd still say they're new restaurant. It's kind of over in the Frandor area, right off Grand River right there.
And that nice mess there.
Michigan. Yeah. You might not be able to get there with all the construction, but
we're those guys survive.
You can, but this was one of having been a part of a lot of grand openings, either me holding them or attending others of restaurants, this was a pretty unique one. And then when I found out, I knew going into it that you were at the helm of this thing. Walk me through your thought process on this, because it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I thought it showcased the restaurant very well. It was different. It had to have been expensive, but it was. You had what I would consider influencer type people in the Lansing area there. They were seeing it firsthand. And I'd just like to know, like, how did that start and how did it perform? Did you get good feedback from that?
Yeah, that's a good story. I pulled it out of my beehole. Can I say that? Yeah. I remember. So they found us by doing a Google search.
Okay.
Because it's owned by a parent company, right? That build these type of things all over the country, and they build unique restaurants that are attached to a hotel.
Okay.
And so Cassidy and I, who was our COO at the time, Michelle was going to be in town, and she's like, "I'd love to meet you guys." And so we put something together, and we, kind of pitched them on what I thought would be a really good plan and fun to do, and the cost. They had an idea of what they wanted to do. Sure. They needed someone to help with PR and opening and the events and then social media for a little while. And, we pitched everything that we thought would be important, and we had the tools. Like, we had video down, no problem. Social media, no problem. Hadn't really done a grand opening for a restaurant.
Yeah.
But I was
Fake it till you make it.
I was like, oh yeah, this is typically what we do in this situation. And Cassidy's in there shaking her head, and I remember specifically, and all my staff shakes their head at me consistently. And I remember her walking out, and we were kind of quiet, and she's just going like this with a smirk on her face. She's like, we don't know how to do a lot of that. And I go, oh yeah, come on. You're a smart girl. We can figure this out, Well, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. She's like, well, you're telling so-and-so. I'm like, all right, I'll tell him. But then we ended up getting it, of course. And not that we couldn't do it, right?
Sure.
We're very capable. We've been in this business a long time. But when I brought it back to the staff, and I had Mary, who was going to be the one. Mary's brilliant.
Yep.
But Mary's very direct and to the point. I kind of brought it up to her, and she's like, I've done these before. You do realize this is a lot of work, right? I'm like, oh yeah. No problem.
We're heady on that one.
Yeah. But, for me though, it was this opportunity, because I just really felt that type of restaurant was needed here.
Yes.
And it goes back to that conversation we were having earlier, that I thought, man, this is going to be really good for Lansing.
Yes.
This is cool. Like, this is great that they picked.
Yes.
And I told him that too. I said, look, man, if you guys don't go with us, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons why you should hire us is because we're plugged in. And we're plugged into the people that I don't want to say matter. That's not what I mean, matter, but we're plugged into the people that care about Lansing like we do. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you that when we start telling this story to people, they're going to be like, oh my God, we've been waiting for this place.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. And I think that's why we got it, is because I told them I was very happy that they were here. Even if you don't go with us, we're going to make sure that we promote it. We'll be there at the grand opening. And so when we did get it, we knew that we had to create this plan. And the plan was, get them on some traditional PR and tell that story of why they chose Lansing. Mm-hmm. And I go, that's the story people want to hear, is that we felt that this was a great location to put this type of restaurant in. Yep. And it was high end. I mean, it's a high end place. Yeah. Right. It's a high end Italian restaurant. They've got a wine, nice little wine bar thing, the automatic dispensers.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Those are sweet.
Yeah. And so from there, we had to plan 3 events, right? We had to plan 2 dinners for, I can't remember what we called them now, but it was just 2 dinners where we were going to invite people from the community that were, were part of the community, that had an invested interest in it, that were, were excited about Lansing, and people that knew other people and those kind of things. Mm. And so, plus then an influencer night where we wanted to get everyone else that was excited, and so for us, those 3 things were very successful, because when you walked around all 3 of those events, mm-hmm. you started to see, we knew everyone. Yeah. Right. And and that's what I told them. I said, look, this community, everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of in that same sort of desire to do great things for Lansing. And they're going to be so excited and honored to have been invited. Yep. And nobody there that we invited felt like, oh, of course I should be here. Yeah. They were like, Bri, thank you so much for putting me on this guest list. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I think, for me, that was pretty special. When we walked around there and people who knew everyone, they were like, man, you got all the right people.
Yeah. There, it seemed like I don't want to be like a gala or like a fundraiser type of event, like where there was a lot going on. There were a lot of familiar faces, and it's like, oh, you're here too? Like that kind of thing. It caught me off guard. I didn't expect it. I was doing the watching from afar of like when I saw, because the event that I went to is I think the third of the influencer night. But when I saw people going there for dinner, it's like, oh my gosh, they got there first. Like there was a little bit of that FOMO there, like But it was wonderful, and I think it was one of those where I think how I would say is people that were aligned with the better interest in Lansing, like the people that really are rooting for it, they want to see better. And then from the restaurant standpoint, that's like exactly the thing that I hear all the time is, why doesn't Lansing have?
Yeah.
Why doesn't Lansing have a nicer this?
We do.
Why doesn't and for me it's always like, well, we'll get there. You just got to support it when it gets here, and just be open minded about it. And then so when the Toscana opening, I was like, finally.
Yeah.
This is one of those where if you close your eyes and they drop you in this building and you were sitting at the bar, you're going to open your eyes up and be like, Grand Rapids, Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, you're thinking of a bigger market when you have that experience, which is great. And I think that's what everybody's been asking for. And it's now like, all right, so you do have to pick this for that, 2-3 times a year you're going out for a nice dinner. You got to support these things and make sure they stay alive because they did pump some money into that thing.
Oh yeah,
it's
going to take a minute.
They didn't spare any expenses.
Yeah.
It's not a Rio Town building there. Like
and they had the same challenges that you've had. I mean, their challenge in the beginning was staff, and that's the challenge of all of us, and trying to get people to come here and trying to just staff it. And I think some restaurants closed in the area, and I think that helped a little bit. But I think there was really good people involved from the leadership down, and I think. Also the management there was really good, and I think that helped. But again, for us, that was a huge. Now, after then I think we did social media for them for another 3 months after that, and then we were done. And for us, like now, if we had to do that again, it'd be no problem.
Yeah, you got a resume builder on there. I remember when I walked in, I was looking at you like at the host stand. I'm like, holy shit, it's like he's working at the restaurant right now. Like, he looks stressed, like, I don't have any room for these people. The food's taking forever. The drinks are coming out slow. Like,
a couple people, too, were like, yeah, I think he's part owner of that.
Again, I got him.
Yeah. They're like, you're crazy, man. I go, no, man, I'm not an owner in this.
Well, we've talked about a lot of stuff. We're kind of wrapping up on time. Anything you want else to cover, or where can people find you at? What do you got coming up? Anything crazy?
Yeah, man, it's easy to find me, michigancreative.com. My link is bryantown.io. It's got all my links on there. I mean, you can just Google search it, and now I'm in the final edit of my book that I wrote, which is, one more thing to do. And it's called The Lonely CEO. And it's basically,
that's cool.
It's basically how hard it is to do what we do. And it sounds a little whiny.
Sure.
But I always read all these books that are, from all these gurus that tell you to do all this stuff. And, then you only need to work a couple hours a day and you can go live in Bali and whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's not reality. Like, man, I got dogs and kids and, the kids are not happy because I forgot their backpack and the dog's pooping on the floor and, and I got to run a business and some employees,
Yeah.
I think that's the reality.
Totally. And
I think that's the type of book I wanted to write is like, hey, man, this is hard. And here's all the stupid stuff I did. Here's all the things I screwed up. Here's how I'm going to try not to screw them up again. And so I'm excited about that. It was a lot of work. And
so when's that launching?
I'm hoping September 1st.
Okay. Is it online version and
Yep.
And
so it'll be a printed.
version?
I wanted a physical one, not that anybody will buy them, just to have that open box of a bunch of copies.
Yeah, totally.
I'll sign one for you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It'll be worth a ton.
Super excited.
Yeah.
No, I am excited about that. And, I read the Bigby books and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear, it's not necessarily you're going to learn everything about entrepreneurship, which there's 100 books out there about that, like telling you exactly, but it is more like we deal with the same shit that you deal with.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm still stressed about where my kids are going to go to college and how the hell I'm going to pay for this, even though you see all these things. Like, it doesn't necessarily equate to like, hey, I'm on a yacht. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm like stressed about my yard right now.
Yeah, me
there's
too.
6
Yeah.
inches of rain out there, like freaking out. But
yeah, and I think that's a great that you brought up Bigby, and I think you too, because on the surface everything looks beautiful and super successful, and you are. And you keep growing and adding another restaurant and doing pizza, and so I think like Bigby, like I was working at Crunchies, I think around that same time when he was working behind the counter.
Yeah, that's cool.
And people forget that.
Yeah.
And I mean, he worked his butt off.
Yep.
And he had no idea what he was doing.
Yep.
And I think that's a great story. I mean, you can look at all entrepreneurs that we see now as super successful, and they're going to have that piece in there.
Yeah.
And so I think for people out there that are wondering if they can do it, I think you can. And I think you all have something in you that you can do it. And you have everything that you need. It's just you got to believe that, number one, and you got to continue to believe it.
Sure.
Cuz it's going to knock you down.
It's got to be cool though to know that you're going to have like a book and like to physically be like, gifts and stupid, not stupid stuff,
yeah,
but
like, would you like my book, my novel?
But like even like donations and stuff like that. It's like, here's a copy of my book.
Yeah, so there's an author I read, Jack Carr, and he writes these books.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I read all his books.
Okay,
and so
I'm audiobooking them, but
yeah, I did a couple of those too. But this last one I wrote, or he wrote, you could get one that's shot through. So like he'll shoot through the. I'm a big book nerd, and so like
he personally shoots through the book. Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
not all the way through, but just the front thing, and then he puts it in the. It's attached, and he signed it. It's pretty cool.
That's
so
pretty cool.
I'll shoot through mine.
Yes.
With a shotgun. That way you don't have to read it.
Well, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Not only the book launch, they also bullet hole through the front of the book,
Yep.
which is amazing. Don't miss. Yeah, now that you brought that up, I do want to talk more about the book. So how far along are you through this thing? Like, are you done with it and you're just going through publishing, or?
Yep. So right now I'm working with an editor. I've worked with an editor through the whole process. So basically I'd write a chapter and she would then edit it, give it back, and then I would add more and she'd then edit it. So then when I got through all the chapters, some of them I would, if I didn't really know or didn't want to write, then I would just dictate it out, and then she would help me kind of get through that. And so all the way through all those right now, I then went through the whole, they sent it back. I went through a whole, changed things, whatever on each chapter. And then now it's going through one last copy edit. And once that's done, then it'll go to publish and print.
Wow. And how long, I think you said about how long have you been working on this?
It's probably about a year.
Okay.
I mean, it's been at least a year. I mean, before that I always had something, the thought of it, but then this whole process, I mean, start to finish, it'll be at least a year.
Are you approaching this more of like a passion project, or more of like no, I really think that I could monetize this. There's a lot of people out there that want to hear this kind of story, and I think there's like a speaking engagement wing to this. I think that there's a second book that could, like, I don't know, like that's how my mind works. Like I want to do a lot of these things, but I also think there could be something on the other end of this thing.
Yeah, of course. New York bestseller.
Yeah, it could be there.
Go broke,
you
right?
Never know, man.
Go home, baby. But no, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. One, it's like, I'm glad. I've always wanted to write a book in some form or another, so I'm glad I did it. And so two, I think if it helps one or two entrepreneurs, I'll be super happy.
Yeah.
I think I'm not expecting it to like be number one or Amazon bestseller. I mean, that would be sweet. But
I mean, you can market it.
I could, yeah. And but I think for me, it's a lead magnet into either business coaching or to the agency, and then also for speak, because I love to speak, and I think speaking events have been great for us. And for me personally, just because I love to do it. Yeah. And one, it's great for business. Yeah. Anytime you're seen as an authority, and it's like speaking for me is super easy. I used to teach high school kids, so
a lot of idiots.
Yeah.
A lot of bad questions.
If I could teach those yahoos, I mean, I can stand in front of whoever. Yeah. But and then I mean, I hope. I mean, of course, my dream is that I hope a bunch of people buy it and it helps them with their business. Yeah. But at the very worst, I'll be able to use it as some sort of authority that, hey, at least I have some knowledge. And it'll be great if I, even if I have a couple boxes on my floor. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, on the creative, like most of it's IP. Was there a bunch of capital dumped into a project like this? Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, really, it's just time. And I think the biggest cost was the editor. Okay. And then after that, it'll be just the cost of the books and then what I want to spend on marketing. If any. Well, I mean, you've got the staff there. I mean, they'll probably want to do it too, as far as the project goes. But I think that's, for you, and I was telling another business owner that he's thinking about, he's about wrapping up and he's just built a great company. And I'm like, man, you should write a book because we don't think we have anything of value. Yeah. But simply our story of, I wanted to call the book of how not, I really wanted, it was originally called How Not to Run a Business. It's an aggressive title. Yeah. I mean, that would be a seller. Like, that's what people want to hear is they want to hear the truth. And so I called it The Lonely CEO because I think for people who are business owners, it's a lonely place. Yeah. Because you can't, like we were talking earlier, you can't really tell your employees necessarily that you're worried. Yep. Your friends don't get it. They think you're loaded. Yeah.
That's just the alcohol. That's not their money.
Yeah. And they love you. So they're, whatever. They'll be super supporters of you. You can tell your spouse about Holly and I talk about this all the time, but sometimes you're like, man, I don't want to worry her.
Yeah. It doesn't always click necessarily.
Yeah.
It's like of course you want to have the shared space and like the good understanding, but I mean, for me, it's just, sometimes there's just things that I don't want to bring you in because I don't want the questions that I've been trying to answer in my head all day.
Yeah.
Well, what if you do this? I
thought about that, but I don't know. So I think that being a business owner is very lonely it's like lonely at the top, which I hate that because I don't feel like I'm at the top.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm at the bottom.
Yeah.
But I think knowing that it's that place, but knowing that there is ways for you to get that support, or there's ways for you to understand that. And,
sure.
So it talks about time management. It talks about hiring and firing. It talks about my leadership mistakes. It talks about having kids and a family, running a business.
Yeah.
I think all those pieces are in there. And if somebody picks it up and reads a chapter or half a chapter and they're like, oh, that's a good tip, I'll be happy.
I'm sure you'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. It might be awful.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking time of your day. Hopefully this was kind of fun for you.
Yeah, man. I'll do this all day with you.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining me, Brian. Till the next episode.